Hi, my name's Jeremy, this is Red Beans Recording, and remember that thing I did like a couple months ago where I made a bunch of music for YouTube and you could use it in your videos and you could monetize and just go nuts with it? Well, I did it again. Yeah, I made music for the YouTube music library again that you can go to the music library and you can download it and you can use it in your videos. You can monetize them. You can do whatever you want. Just use all my music in your videos. I want to run through every song that I made. There's 10 of them. 10. I want to spend about a minute on each one. Just go rapid fire through them and just tell you a little bit about how they're made. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just real fast through all of them. Let's do it. So the first track is called Power Up, and it's kind of like a chiptune track, kind of. All the drums are from Battery. I use the Byte Riot expansion for the whole thing, and yeah, that's a really good starting place for everything. So the main drums are from that. Got a little perk kit here, also from the same expansion. This 16th note thing is from Chromophone. I use this 16th enhancer preset a lot. It's just a really nice physical sounding hi-hat that adds a lot in the background. It's nice. Those are the drums. Bass is a combination of things. So here's the main bass. It's from the Byte Riot expansion. And then we got another bass, also in Massive from the Byte Riot expansion. Then we got some synths. What do we got here? We got this battery kit from the Byte Riot expansion that has a bunch of chords in it. And I use that sort of as a little accent here and there. Kind of sounds like a pocket operator, doesn't it? This chip back thing is what starts us off. Little tiny thing from Massive. Again, from the Byte Riot expansion. This little guy, I don't know what this is. What is this? Oh yeah, just a little effect from Plogue Chip Sounds. I bought this specifically for this project. It's a plugin that has a bunch of different chips, like chiptune chips. Look at all these actual chip names, very technical. And yeah, it's very authentic sounding for chiptune stuff. Let's go to the ARP section. What do we got? I believe this was mostly done with the Plogue synth again. And the main idea behind a lot of what's going on with this track is that I layered a lot of stuff and used the same lines with different synths. So different arpeggios will hit on different versions of different synths here and there. So like, here's another ARP. So when I wanted more of a square wave sound, I'd use that. That's more of a middle section thing. Which is just really nice, and I use that in the breakdown. Pads. Love me some pads. What do we got going on here? These are actually chords. And I grabbed a couple of the bass waveforms from the Native Instruments Byte Riot expansion. Just they have a bunch of these waves here. And so I grabbed those and I threw two of them into a sampler. Did some layering. Used this crush thing. Thanks for the update, bro. I love this plugin. I showed it off in my free VSTs things. I've been using it quite a bit. See, very nice. And then this towel chorus, which widens it. And then this is again from Plogue. Nice little attack there, a little bit of vibrato, just like a really nice bass layer thing going on. This has like Mellotron as its bass, like a Mellotron string thing, which is just really nice, especially crushed like that. This is from Massive. This is from the Byte Riot expansion. Really nice expansive pad that I threw in the breakdown section. Leads. What do we got? I think I use chip sound for almost all the leads. And there's a lot of automation going on here for volume and stuff like that, like you would use for a tracker if you were doing this in like a tracker, which would be more appropriate for doing chiptunes. Nice kind of percussive thing. This really soft, small lead that I use in the breakdown. And you can see like these leads double up. So you're getting different textures and different like support things as you go through. And that gives a different sort of feel to things as you're going through. Finally, we have some effects, which are going to be mostly audio. I grabbed these from various sample packs. A lot of them came from Byte Riot. And I just put them all in a bus. Nothing crazy. Just little support things. And I'm sending a lot of this to the Spaceship Delay, which is a free delay plugin that I went over in my free VSTs thing, which I really, really like. It's got a lot of cool options and just sounds really good. So that's Power Up. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, the next track is called The Emperor's Army, and it's an atmospheric drum and bass track that started using Lone Forest, which is a Native Instruments expansion, which is for atmospheric drum and bass. Sometimes it's good just to have a little starting point, you know? Do the thing, do that thing. Anyways, let's go through it real quick. So the basic kit from the drums is from Lone Forest. Pretty just bread and butter drum and bass thing going on there. I have some loops supporting it. Various loops as we go through. Just some nice little drum and bass loops going on. I have some rides, which come from Damage, you can see here, which I play like I was actually a drummer, which I'm not, but if I was, this is how I'd play rides. I have a little fill thing going on. This fill has the LFO tool from Xfer on it now and then. It is doing a comb filter thing, which is really nice. We use that in the background a bunch. And then I have the real versions of the fills. Yeah, nice. Let's go to the basses. The main bass is kind of a sub bass going on. That's courtesy of Massive. Later on, I have two instances of laser bass, which are from Reactor. Laser bass is super cool. And you can see down here that I have a whole bunch of stuff modulating that I played on the Native Instruments keyboard while I was playing this to just make it really flip out. Two different laser basses going on there. Synths, what do we got? We got this thing from Massive, which I pulled from the Lone Forest expansion. I hate my hair right now, by the way. Headphones are not good for hair. And that goes out throughout, just kind of like laying down some nice chill stuff. We got this really nice pad, courtesy of Massive, which is being compressed using the VC160. An ARP that's kind of just kicking it in the background, courtesy of the Arturia CS80V run through guitar rig. You have these really nice massive chords here, which are being crushed using the same free crush plugin. And then we've got a LFO tool doing some volume and cutoff modulation. The main melody is a combination of two synths. It started off with this one from Lone Forest, which is a really cool sample and hold thing going on. Also with a beautiful forever verb. And it was a little too soft, so I added this pluck, which is also from Massive. Together they give you both percussive stuff and a beautiful sort of forever thing. One of the things that I picked up for this project was the electric sunburst guitar from Native Instruments. And this thing's really cool. It's got a bunch of recorded phrases for guitar, and you can change the way that the thing sounds using amps and duff. Like here's amp settings. You can turn these on and off and change how they sound. I believe a lot of these probably come from guitar rig algorithms. But what you see here at the patterns is you can set every single one of these patterns to be something else, and see how they say C1, C sharp 1, D1, stuff like that. You can trigger them to change between patterns by pressing that key on the keyboard. So it's just this really, really nice guitar that you can add to your project. And I have that going throughout. I have two instances of this guitar, actually. So yeah, I like guitar a lot. I'm not super great at playing it. I also have the Native Instruments strummed guitar doing a little bit of strumming guitar during the break. All right, orchestral. This is where I really decided to have some fun. First thing going on here is we have near the end an instance of Rev, Rev is a plugin from Output. It's a contact instrument. I used Exhale a lot in the original YouTube music library stuff, and Rev is another one of theirs based on reversed instruments. So this chill pad is from that. I have multiple string lines going on here from contact libraries of orchestral strings. And the thing about this thing is, you can see this dynamics knob moving up and down. You can see the automation for it here. I was incredibly impressed with how organic this is. You can just get it to swell really beautifully up and down. So I automated that in real time. And I backed it up with some brass from the same collection. And then finally, a solo string line on top. And then finally, in the main build, I used action strings from Native Instruments, which is also another contact thing. Which is a bunch of, it's kind of like the guitar from earlier. It's a bunch of pre-recorded phrases that you can play in different pitches. You can see I'm using this thing here, the Chase one, with the accents as they are presented. And together, we just get this really cool orchestral thing going on. I love it. I love it. Finally, we have some piano that comes in near the end, which is courtesy of Alicia's keys. Very nice. Finally, some effects, which were all created in session mode. So I created this drum rack and I put in a bunch of effect sounds. And I stretched them to be the amount of bars that I needed. And then I just made these effect sort of like groups, these little like phrases that have effects that go through. And you can see that I've used different ones throughout here. And this gives me my rises and my falls throughout that I made in session mode, and they just transferred over here, which is really, really nice. So yeah, that is The Emperor's Army. It's one of my favorite tracks in the compilation. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so the next track is called Into the Sky. It's sort of an atmospheric post-rock thing, uplifting, I don't know, it's got a bunch of different stuff. It started off as sort of an ambient piece with some glitchy drums, and then moved into this post-rock territory once I realized that I wanted to build it up. So let's go through what's going on. I have some glitchy drums here going on in conjunction with Crush. And depending on whether or not Crush is engaged or not, I get different sounds out of them. I have a second glitch drum thing here. And that comes in sort of in the build leading into the main drum stuff, which is done by DrumLab. DrumLab is a combination of acoustic and synthetic drums on each layer, and you can go in and mess with each layer, and it just has a really cool punchy sound that I really, really like, while also being organic. So I use the rides and stuff like that throughout that, and then obviously the main kit. And that chromophone thing from earlier sounds like a really great 16th note hi-hat, but it's actually a synthetic thing. I really like it. Chromophone's awesome. Bass is a combination of a couple things. When I first start to bring the bass in, it's courtesy of Laser Bass, because I wanted a electronic element to it to start it off. And then we move into one of my favorite contact instruments, which is this Rickenbacker. Sort of a standard rock thing going on there to hold stuff down. So these tracks started off with Kinetic Metal, which is a complete instrument, which is pretty wild. It's just a lot of really cool sampled metallic sounds mixed together in different ways. So there's a couple of these going on throughout here. You can see there's some automation going on built in here using an LFO. It's part of the instrument. It's really complex stuff going on. Like, you've got a lot of different layers all coming from one instrument, which I really, really, really like. A lot of piano throughout. Just a really nice upfront piano sound. In the last video, we went over the Sunburst guitar, and I used that a bunch in here. Now we have like ARPs and sequences. One of the things that this particular genre in my head combines is glitchy melodic stuff with a very strong harmonic like chord progression. And I just needed some things throughout that like supported the glitchy stuff. So I have a little FM8 thing going on here. Just to give the otherwise organic sound a bit of synthetic stuff. Finally, a couple leads courtesy of Absinthe. I needed something with a long decay and a really kind of like synthetic push through the mix kind of thing, and this Absinthe patch did great for that. That's dry as just the patch itself, and I just think it sounds great. It's got a nice wobble to it. Sounds very M83 to me. And there's a smaller version of it later that I use, which is courtesy of the Arturia Jupiter 8. And I've got Crush on it again and some reverb courtesy of RC48. Finally, some effects. These are courtesy of Rev, which is an instrument from Output. There's a whole selection of risers in Rev that you can select by their bar length. So for instance, these are 2-bar risers combined with a longer riser, and then I'm using crashes from Damage, which has like a crash suite, which is really good for soundtracky stuff. So all three of those are combining throughout to give me the kind of sounds that I'm looking for. So yeah, that's Into the Sky. Let's go on to the next one. One of my personal favorites of the group is called STARDRIVE, heavily inspired by both some of the Gorillaz tracks, but mostly a Brother Tiger track, which kept on running through my head. So let's go through it and see how it happened. Start with the drums. A couple drum kits going on here. I used an expansion for this primarily to start, and I can't remember which one it was. I'll let you know if I remember. But here's the basic flat kit that goes throughout the whole thing. This is sort of the Gorillaz-inspired kit. So then we have something with a bit more heft in the bass drum and a bit more snap and stereo width in the snare, Corosio Polyplex, which is a really, really, really cool plugin I like. When I actually get into the rocking parts, I use the Abbey Road Modern Drummer and squashed it to hell and drove it with the Ableton drum bus. And that gives me a really nice, full drum kit sound that does exactly what I want it to. In the big rocking sections, I needed an accent that was sort of a noise thing. So I grabbed this form preset and did a little bit of work with it. And you can hear how it works together with the drums here. Finally, we have some tambourine. And I have this little loop hanging out in the background here, which is just sort of a support loop to give the rest of the drums a little bit of vibe. Oh, you know what? This is from Polar Flare. That's what the Native Instruments expansion is that I started with. So here's the main sort of synthetic bass that goes throughout. Big stereo width. I'm using drum bus on it because I like drum bus a lot. It does a lot more than just drums. It's pretty cool. The crunched Rickenbacker preset, which I really like. Again, just eighth notes using the arpeggiated thing here, so I can just hold down notes and play. Guitars, this track depended heavily on the Electric Sunburst from Native Instruments. I sound like such a shill, but I just really like the way this sounds, and I really like guitar, and I can't play it as well as this thing can. This lead guitar thing that comes in is actually the old jazz guitar preset that I used to use all the time for my lead guitar duties, and it's run through Guitar Rig. It actually sounds pretty good. This is two things loaded on top of each other. I have the jazz guitar again, run through Guitar Rig, and that sounds like this. And then I have a synth backing it up. So I get the nice distorted guitar from the jazz thing, and then I get that saw wave cutting through the mix. And this little breakdown section after the first big section where our guitars are kind of like kicking it, I really wanted some feedback. And luckily, through Complete Control, I'm able to search for feedback, and luckily, this AAS preset for String Studio is exactly what I was looking for. This really cool physically modeled guitar feedback, which just sounds fantastic. Got it auto panning back and forth, doing some stuff there. More guitars! So many guitar layers, all from the Electric Sunburst thing. Layering is fun. I like to layer. Okay, so then we have some synths. This was the thing that kicked it off. This is from Polar Flare. This was sort of like the first thing I laid down in session mode when I was messing with stuff here. This really cool flute thing was also from the same expansion. Kind of a Mellotron vibe. Sitting on top of stuff. Got a nice little detune. Nice big detuned chime thing at the top there to add some just accent. Finally, we have an instance of Exhale from Output. I use this a whole bunch in the first YouTube music library videos. I don't know why I put this in here. I just thought it added some vibe. Here's a section from the Arturia Solina plugin, which is really good for synthetic strings with a certain vibe. And the reason it's frozen is because I needed to record it as audio and bring it in here so I could do these pitch drops. Finally, we got a whole bunch of effects. Look at all these sweeps. Just basic white noise and effects sweeps going on to give things some lift and fall there. I use them in all my tracks. It is what it is. That is STARDRIVE. Let's go check out the next track. All right, the next track is called A Rising Wave, and it was heavily inspired by Lindstrom's I Feel Space, which was a track that came out when I was younger, and I really, really loved part of the space disco kickoff movement thing. And it starts with this bass arp that was the impetus to the whole thing from the Arturia CSV80. And I just sat and I played chords on this and just really liked the arpeggiated sound. Kind of meandered through, and there's a sequence that just repeats twice throughout the whole thing, and some automation on the cutoff filter of the CSV80. So that was the basics of the track. And then I went through and I added some drum kits from Battery, a loop, kicking it in the background, some tambourines, and then this loop from the deadmau5 sample CD that came out a long time ago. And the synthetic percussion thing that comes in the second half, which is courtesy of Chromophone. I love Chromophone so much. It does so much good stuff. It's a really, really cool plugin. There are a bunch of pads that come in that support the melodic progression. I love Absinthe for atmospheric stuff that I want to sit in the background. So that's what's going on with that. Really cool sound. I grabbed this free children's choir from Sound Iron. They have a couple free instruments on their website for Contact. Which I just thought was a cool vibe in the background. Another pad comes in later on, which sounds to me like the Arturia... Oh no, it's massive. I would have guessed this was the Arturia Solina, but it's not. It's massive. Really cool sounding Boards of Canada kind of thing going on there. And then this thing, which in the second repeat of the melodic sequence, of the harmonic sequence, I really wanted some additional percussion elements to come in. And this thing is cool because it's both percussive and melodic. And there's a bunch of automation going on throughout to turn it from what you hear right here into that. And it's sidechained using the LFO tool. There's a lead melodic line that I developed that I just repeated throughout, but I used different instruments for it depending on what part of the song I was in. I needed more power or less power in certain places. So the one that starts off is courtesy of two instances of Massive stacked on top of each other. One of them sounds like this. sort of a breathy little flute sound, and the other one's a chime. So combining a longer element with a percussive element so we can get the best of both worlds. In the sort of like middle chorus section where everything kind of opens up, I started bringing in this sort of spooky sound, which is courtesy of Ultra Analog, which is also another great plugin. Just a really, really nice, like grungy upfront saw kind of thing going on there. So that comes in twice. In the repeat, I wanted a different lead to take things up. So that's courtesy of Contour, which is a really, really cool plugin from Native Instruments as well. The idea was like playing with layers, playing with sonic layers with the same underlying element. And then we have one final lead that comes in at the end, which is just this big classic sync thing, courtesy of the ARP 2600 plugin from Arturia. Finally, I have a whole bunch of rises and falls, courtesy of either audio samples or Rev by Output. And they're all sidechained using the LFO tool from Xfer. So that is a rising wave. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, so the next track is called Pixelated Autumn Leaves, and this is one of the more experimental tracks on the collection. I really wanted to do more ambient and soundtrack stuff for this one because the last one was all kind of beat heavy and poppy. So I really relied heavily on things like Output's Rev and just a lot of atmospheric stuff. So this track actually was going to just be this. I was just going to have this really nice melodic ambient thing, a la sort of like compact ambient stuff, gas, like just the specific kind of sound that I really, really liked. So I made these three things with Rev from Output and sort of layered them. And so I started adding some other elements. The first thing I added was I thought I was just going to play some piano throughout it, but that turned out to be not exactly what I was looking for. So I started adding some like heartbeat kind of beats, and I used reactor blocks for that. Unfortunately, I have gotten rid of the MIDI for this because of the way that reactor blocks works. When you hit play, it plays, and I was like, I don't need that right now. I'm gonna commit this performance to audio, and then I got rid of the MIDI for it. But there are some drum things in reactor blocks that you can really, really tweak and perform, just modular drum kit stuff. So the first one was this thing, and I'm tweaking knobs throughout playing the entire thing to bring in different elements. That whine, I'm playing with the pitch of that whine and the weird little sounds that you hear on the top of stuff. It was a little unpredictable, which was cool because it gives the whole thing an organic feel. And then there was a second beat, which was also from reactor blocks, that depending on how you changed the knobs, the sequences and the hi-hat and the way that the kick drum and the bass drum hit would all change. So I play that throughout. It's just a performance, the whole thing. You can see that it's just straight committed to audio. And then on top of stuff, I have this hi-hat thing from Rounds, which I did not commit to audio, so you can see it. Rounds is kind of an enigma to me still, but when I do drive with it, it's really, really, really cool. So there's a lot of performance stuff going on here. I'm just letting Rounds do its thing and letting that sit on top of the beat. So the ambience thing repeats once, and then the second repeat, we have everything start coming in. This was the one of the things I added early on too. It was just kind of going to be this and the ambience, because in the genre of this kind of ambient music, usually there's like a little tiny bit of rhythm going on underneath, and this sort of clockish thing with a melodic element from FMA really just dialed that right in for me. As the thing built up, I decided that I wanted to add a really deep piano sound to it that created melodic movement that wasn't there before. Because we have this really floaty thing with no real like chord progression. And then once the beat comes in, I'm like, oh, well, now I want a chord progression. So I have this beautiful, beautiful deep piano thing that I've squashed to death with a compressor and then EQ'd that just really, really comes in nicely. There's no bass in this track. This thing actually ends up being the bass. It's just beautiful. I love it to death. And finally, there's a sunburst guitar thing that kind of just hangs out in the background. And a chimed version of it later on. Rounding things off a little bit are another instance of that Mercury micro choir, that free children's choir that I had in a previous track, and this other one of theirs, which is men and women, not kids. Just to add another element to it. It's kind of an uplifting track. The drums make it a little wonky because of the way that those like kind of like high-pitched stuff comes in. So it's a combination of really, really digital stuff and really, really warm stuff. And that's pretty much what I was going for. So that's Pixelated Autumn Leaves. Let's do the next one, I guess. One of my most popular tracks from the original YouTube library stuff was called Heaven and Hell, and I wanted to kind of recapture that vibe and revisit it, and also combine it with sort of the idea of a track that was appropriate for time-lapse. I didn't actually kind of get what I wanted out of this, but I did create this big cinematic thing called Heaven and Hell Part 2, which has a lot of guitars and a lot of synths and is based off of, again, a couple presets from Kinetic Metal from Native Instruments. This track goes through small pieces and big pieces and needed a lot of different types of kits and stuff like that. So you got this kit from Battery here. I have this big kit from Drum Lab that comes in later that is part of the main thing. I have this little supporting glitch thing from Heaviosity that has a bunch of different loops that you can trigger depending on how you're playing it. And that's kicking it in the background. I have a big toms, almost like taiko drums, kicking it from Damage. I have some reverse percussion, which is courtesy of Damage. You know, going with the idea of time lapse, I wanted the music to kind of like sound like that too, and you know, reverse stuff sounds kind of cool, I guess. And in the beginning I got this very sort of like regimented feel, so I added this little clock sound from the Arturia Mini V. Just a little accent there. Big sub bass from the CS80V from Arturia. Big ass sub bass. Like I said earlier, this was started from a session of just layering Kinetic Metal from Native Instruments. So these are different instances of Kinetic Metal doing their thing. All you hear right now is this. There's one there. There's this loop selection thing from Rev. You can hear that it's reversed. It's really, really cool. And you can play them with different keys. Like each key is a different loop. So that's what's going on here. Just cool ambience and stuff going on in the background. A bunch of different synths all kind of like supporting each other. We got this crazy thing from Massive, which I just wanted to add into the section as a new layer. It's got a heartbeat thing going on, which was a theme we sort of started earlier. I got this chill chime going on here. A chime later on to give some accent. Just a little melody. Some really, really nice strings, courtesy of the CS80V. Where would we be without the same arpeggiated line I used in Heaven and Hell? Except this time I used the free Tyrell plugin from UHE, because it just sounds really, really good for this exact kind of sound. Like a just really clean, subtractive synth pluck. And I automate the cutoff frequency throughout to give me more energy. A lot of piano throughout, courtesy of... Is it Alicia's keys? Oh no, this is the Giant. All the different pianos in the Native Instruments library have a different vibe, and the Giant, when heavily compressed, squashed to death, is exactly what I was looking for here. Ton of Sunburst guitar, I just layered the hell out of it. We got some mutes in the beginning. We got these more dire sort of stabs later on. So I sprung for this Evolution Strawberry thing for my lead guitar sound. It's not a normal contact instrument. I paid for it. And I did a lot of programming here to try to make this as organic sounding as possible. Which, you know, moderately successful. I'm running it through Guitar Rig. That's what it sounds like originally. And then I have some EQ going on here. So I'm back on my orchestral tip with these strings here, using the string ensemble thing here. You can see I've automated the string ensemble's dynamic knob to give me dynamics. I'm coupling it with brass and a solo cello line. Just a big, big orchestral sound with dynamics. Finally, a bunch of effects courtesy of Rev from Output. Again, I'm using the timed risers preset. So I have a 2-bar riser, I have a 8-bar riser, and then I have crashes. So that is Heaven and Hell Part 2. Let's go on to the last 3 tracks, which all share a very similar DNA. The last 3 tracks are all sort of part of a little mini suite. I really, really wanted to dive more into soundtrack and piano and ambient stuff for this round. I didn't do quite as much as I'd like, but I'll Remember You is the first of the 3 pieces, and it's just piano. I sat down and played a piano thing, and you can see over here I have 3 different pianos I was trying out. I ended up deciding on Alicia's keys for the piano sound that I wanted. And that's it. The only other thing I did here was add this room tone. And that's because I found that even though the pianos were expertly recorded and beautiful on their own, they were too dead. You can hear the hall, you can hear the piano itself, but I wanted it to actually feel like it was being played in a room. So for all 3 of these pieces, I added this room tone, just kicking it in the background just a little bit. Yeah, in these 3 tracks, the tempo doesn't matter. I had the metronome turned off. These aren't quantized. It's just played. And that was a cool thing to do. So very simple one here. The other 2 are a little bit more complicated. So let's move on to those. So the second track in the sort of mini suite is called A Revelation, and it too started just with a piano. This one I added more layers to, and I started orchestrating it a bit more. So we have this bass piano thing going on here. This was heavily inspired by the composition work for some of my favorite shows like Broadchurch and The Dark, which was a German Netflix show. Really beautiful stuff. And I have that room tone trick going on. Riker, what are you doing? No, I have to kick my dog out. This is based on a repeating piano line that repeats 3 times, the phrase does, and each time I add something a little bit more. So the first thing that comes in are these 2 pads here. One of them is courtesy Chromophone. Again, God bless you, Chromophone. The other one, strings, and I'm back on the string ensemble thing. I'm using dynamics a ton in this. It's in the track, so a lot of dynamic work done here so that I can make things rise and fall as I want them to. So that's what's going on there. And then in the break before the big section where everything comes in, I add this cool scanner pad, which I believe is courtesy of its scanner. That's why I call it the scanner pad. Just a nice sustained chord with some cool electronic vibe and more strings. I really needed a big bass violin sound to hold things down. So I've got that going on. I have a violin section. And I have sort of a mid section. Again, this is not quantized. I played all of this live. Just, I really wanted this big rise that matched the piano stuff. There are 2 instances of kinetic metal, I believe, right here that are doing just some tinklies on top. This is really all about texture, right? Like when the strings are coming in, I wanted more texture to just change the sound of what was happening. So got that little tinkle there going on top with this one. And then there's another one that's sort of on the bottom, but they both have a high frequency thing and just tinkling that kind of like goes throughout. And then finally, when things get really big, when all the strings are going crazy, I added this distorted guitar here, courtesy of Evolution Strawberry. I was trying to think like a soundtrack composer, like, you know, you have your soundstage, you have your pianos, you have your strings, but what else can you add? What else can you add as a texture? And the sky's really the limit when you are working in a DAW, which is what I love about it. So that is a revelation. Let's move on to the last track. All right, we're at the end. The final track and the third part of the little mini suite is called I'll Remember You. And we're following a very similar pattern that we saw before. I have just sat down and replayed some piano. We have the Grandeur doing the piano duties this time around. I've compressed it and EQ'd it to taste. And then I have that room tone kicking it there to pump with the piano to give it some vibe. This one really was sort of an ending goodbye track. That's what it was supposed to be. So the piano line is this. You can see that this is the main one, and then it repeats again with a little bit of different in the ending and stuff. And then we have strings that come in and support the piano and get bigger as we go through. We have an ensemble, we have basses, and we have violins. I don't know why I called out violins. I wanted a solo bass sound. So here's a bass section from an orchestra, and it's giving us some really nice deep bass. And finally, our main ensemble here. You can hear the expression being played throughout. That's what's making our strings work right there. And then the violins hanging out on top. So those are my contributions to the YouTube Music Library Round 2. I hope that you enjoyed watching, and I hope maybe I learned you something. If not, ask in the comments and I'll learn you some more. And go use these tracks in your videos. Go do stuff with them. I'd love to see what you do. I might even be doing a special giveaway using tracks in the videos if you do the thing with them, but I don't know yet. I'll let you know. I'll do a video about it here for you. That's it. My name's Jeremy. This is Red Beans Recording. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.